really going to change it up on you this afternoon for the scale. We're calling it Scale at Velocity because we're going to do this fast. Another thing we're doing is we're pivoting a little bit. So we had scheduled a nice little video clip. We've been rehearsing now for about 6 months, and the video clip, we can't get that through YouTube. So I'm going to have to explain what was on the video, and then you guys can get kind of where we're headed from there for the scaling part of it.
I thought you were going to reenact it.
Well, no, we're not going to, well, maybe. But so everybody here, Ford versus Ferrari, Carroll Shelby and Henry Ford Jr. Everybody see that movie? We saw a little bit of the clip this morning. All right, the scene out of that where they lock the head of engineering for Ford in the mechanic shop, and Shelby throws Ford into the car and says, "Jump in, Mr. Ford. Let's go see what $9 million feels like." So we're going to start with the scaling session. Have you guys ever wanted to do that with your investors or key people or anything to say, hey, you know, we're the CEOs here, and they're asking you a lot of questions about this process. You're moving pretty quick. Say, hey, you want to jump in here with me and go for a ride? You ever do that?
Ask them to do it. Yeah, they can get after it.
John, you got anybody in mind right now that you want to throw in?
More often than not, they just want to give you money and go away.
Okay.
It seems like, but we're lucky to have some that are pretty involved. So
all right. Well, let's give a little background. Nick Black, this is Nick Black with GoodUnited. You met Jeremy earlier. They're the recipients of this year's Company of the Year. Give us a little background on GoodUnited.
So GoodUnited is a conversational messaging platform for nonprofits. When I left the military about 10 years ago, I started a nonprofit myself called Stop Soldier Suicide. I'm a true glutton for punishment. And in that experience, I did every aspect of the organization. 10 years later, there's 85 employees, one of the, I think, the second largest veteran-serving organization in the country. But fundraising really pissed me off. It really pissed me off because I thought it should be a lot easier than it was. And what I learned was that the entire $495 billion industry is focused on high net worth individuals, where the average donor gives 9 times as much as those with the largest wallets. However, the experience for an average donor is garbage. At best, you'll get an email newsletter that you won't open. If you do open, God help you if you click the button. If you click the button, welcome to World's Worst landing page. You get to enter 20 pieces of information to make your $20 gift again. So how can we reimagine the giving experience? That's where Jeremy and I came together, leveraging technology, and we believe conversational messaging is that tool that we can use to reimagine how everyone in this country should have a meaningful experience with the causes that matter to them, no matter how large your wallet is.
And you've been doing this for a while.
Too long, 9 years.
This is a 9-year overnight success is what we call it.
Yeah, the first 5 were a real disaster. Okay. Last 4, better, but give us some more time.
And we're going to get into some of those disasters here in a little bit. All right, John, you're a little bit about ScopeStack, and you got a little bit of news for us.
Yeah, so ScopeStack is a B2B SaaS platform. We've been around for about 5 years. The premise of our platform is to solve the pain that I had when I worked at a solution provider, IT solution provider. And it's all around scoping and pricing IT services projects. So, I had a team of very highly paid engineers, and the reason you pay them so much is because they're good in front of clients. They are not good at copying and pasting and actually paying attention to detail. So really our platform is built all around automating that statement of work process for companies all over the world.
All right, you may have some news for us. Is that for public disclosure yet?
Yeah, probably as of 30 minutes ago. So we're very happy to announce that we just closed an A-round investment with our partner, Cultivation Capital. So yeah, Cliff Holcamp out of Greenville.
Cliff Holcamp, local group.
Thank you. Yeah. Now what, right?
Yeah.
We keep checking our bank account.
That may be the first one that Cultivation's closed here locally.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I've been talking to Cliff, and he's been a great.
Is Cliff here? Cliff is on the SC Launch board.
So I've been talking to Cliff for a year and a half, 2 years, and it was a very easy conversation just because he's very education oriented, and he helped us understand what we were doing and provided some advice. And so he's been a great partner. and
So
looking
he's
forward to the
probably
future.
wondering why you're here, you're not working.
He told me to come here and say this.
Okay.
So.
All right. So next thing is, as you're scaling these companies, you've raised a bunch of money, you're scaling, you're highly involved, and it's really easy to get wrapped around the axle in the daily chores of the company. Talk a little bit about what do you do? You got to do your day-to-day functions. You got to manage the company. How do you get out in front of your company and go look at, all right, what's next in sales? What's next in marketing? Who do I need to hire? How do I stay in front of this snowball and manage it and get the most return for my investors possible? Nick, you've been doing this a while. You go first.
Yeah, I guess the preface is that I don't really know what to do, but I have a PhD in what not to do. So I can speak to that. In regards to keeping your head above water and looking forward, it's about finding the right people to join your team. Giving them very strict left and right limits so that you can elevate and do your job. I think one of the things that we failed at, we continue to struggle with, is that if people aren't doing their job at a tactical level, then the operational, your directors get sucked into tactics. And everyone starts doing other people's job rather than their own. And so seemingly on a quarterly basis, we have to reset what's your job, what's your role, make sure you're doing it. And if people aren't stacking up or doing what they need to do, then we need to address that. But it's very, very difficult, especially when things are rolling fast. It's very hard to take a step back. What we've also done is engineer time for Jeremy and myself. We used to do mountain retreats where we'd go away for 3 days and just think. And I just told him this morning we should do that again because life starts moving quickly. Seemingly need to engineer time away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo a lot of that, right? So we started implementing something called EOS, so Entrepreneur Operating System, and it's a lot of the ideas that Nick was talking about around, okay, who's accountable for what? And that was a very clarifying experience for us because we started laying out all the actions and activities that we needed to get done to have true traction. And then we started slating that for certain people, and it helped us identify, hey, we need another body, or we need to, or that person's not in the right seat on the bus, let's reevaluate that, right? And so that's either a monthly conversation, a quarterly conversation, but similar to Nick, just engineering that time and protecting time, being intentional about that. I do something called a clarity break, so once a month we'll set off some time to literally be away from the business, because you really have to have that mental headspace to kind of think at a different level.
So keeping your employees engaged in that whole process, there's a certain part of it you've got to go do on your own, you got to prove it out, but there's other part you got to keep your employees up to speed on. What are your mediums? What do you use? Do you use employee? You're talking about some outings. But what else do you use to keep that morale, to make sure that the employees know that Nick's doing his job, he's doing it in our best interest, he's not going to fire us tomorrow, we know what's going on. What are the internal mediums that you guys use when you're rolling at this rate?
Yeah, last year we had monthly all hands meetings, and one of our goals this year was to amp it up. We do it through 3 ways, but one of them is to shorten the flash to bang. So every Wednesday we have an all hands meeting for 30 minutes. And instead of me talking, we have different directors come, and everyone at the company gets to position and present their OKRs, which is one of the mechanisms we use to drive results and make sure alignment. So really trying to delegate and bring people in so everyone feels part of the solution rather than just assuming someone else is doing it for them. So just tighten the flash to bang. There's a quote from somebody I saw the other day, is things that happens next month have to happen next week today, get an hour, get it done right now, move now, get it done right now, stop, get it done, right? So how do you amp it up? You have to get and start putting forcing mechanisms in place to make sure that people are moving at the speed that you need the company to go at.
I think that's the sense of urgency you have to have, right? Like I was part of a VMS group, and one of the mentors, this was early on, and I was like, we're not hitting our sales goals and all this stuff, and he's like, well, you just don't have the fire to do it. And like that was a very eye-opening experience for me. And again, I kind of said like you have to have a level of urgency, but you have to be clear about where you're going. Otherwise, it's just going to be you causing more chaos than anything.
Yeah. You guys are getting ready to get into that with this new tranche of money.
Yeah. I mean, so we knew this was coming, and so we were trying to lay the groundwork now. Hence some of the EOS and some of the other pieces that we've been rolling out. But yeah, I mean, we worked on a whole, accountability chart and who's accountable for what task. Well, that's already changing. We just finalized it like 30 days ago, right? So just the level of like speed that we're going at, you have to stay in front of it. Otherwise, it'll just run you over.
So talking about that, so back to our little snippet with Ford versus Ferrari. You guys remember the point where Mr. Ford's in the car and Phil Remington steps out and says, "It's at this point where the uninitiated tend to soil themselves." And so talk about that a little bit. When you get moving at this velocity, how are you guys managing through that and setting expectations for yourself? I know you got to be nervous a little bit, but at the same time, how do you lead the company through this scale at velocity?
Yeah, man, I think it's all about, okay, what is the goal? I think someone up here earlier mentioned a North Star metric, but what is the one thing that we're focused on? And again, it takes everyone to get to that goal. But you have to be out in front of it, right? So like Nick said, we're talking about quarterly objectives. So we have an annual objective, we break it down into quarters. Okay, this is what we're actually doing this time, and right, you start breaking down these tasks into small steps at a time, because one of our values is just being action oriented, right? And so like you got to take action, you got to keep going, and you have to have clarity around it. Otherwise, it becomes pretty wild.
I think for us, it's about breaking down silos, breaking down barriers, and getting people closest to the point of action. So wherever closest point of action is building that code, getting closer to the customer, and building backwards from there, and ensuring that we're not creating bureaucracy or groups that are not really sure what they're doing or why.
No, and how many people are you managing right now?
I think we're about 48.
And what are you up to, John?
Yeah, so we're at 10 with a plan to double that in the next 90 days.
You just went through that, okay.
Yeah.
So you're moving at a really good pace. You've just got this money, and there's always that moment with the founders when you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and like, uh-oh, I've got to deliver this.
Yeah.
Talk about those moments. When you realize. So we were talking about market fit this morning. I think that's really market fit when you realize that, oh no, somebody wants this. I've got to deliver it, and I got to deliver a lot of them. When was that with ScopeStack?
Yeah, well, I think we used to experience it anytime we would land a client, because we were like, oh no, we landed one. Are we prepared to deliver this? And now we're doing that at scale, right? And so landing multiple accounts, potentially daily, monthly, depending on the size, but.
We call that when the dog catches the car.
Right, yes.
What do you do?
Yeah, so when we catch it, it really is all about the confidence in your team, right? And so when we were, letting our team know about this closing and all that was successful, it really was the starting point of that conversation was thank you for everything you're doing, because without a good team, without having, built that in the right way, it's impossible to hit the goals that we've laid out there.
Yeah. Nick, I remember some times early on with you guys where, you were struggling with this and Facebook was your only platform. And I remember one day when you called me and said, I think I got it. What was that? When was that?
2018. So we started a company in 2014. We tried to figure out everything not to do. We did a pretty good job. Reset, did customer discovery. I know AJ was talking about that earlier. Really found out how to find product market fit. We did it. And when you find fit, everything makes sense because everything gets easy. And then now I know when we don't have fit because it's too hard, right? We're not there yet. We need to keep learning. We need to keep positioning the messaging. So for us, it was the summer of 2018, and then it just started accelerating through COVID.
Through COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for us, like you start to experience, like you can feel the momentum of it, but again, it doesn't mean it's easy yet, right? And so I think that's the earlier, to your point, is like that's the earlier stages of what Nick and his team have done is you can feel it, but it's not quite there yet, right? Like, so we know we need to refine a few things, our go-to-market, how we onboard clients, a number of different pieces there. But I'd say, and again, I don't know if you're going to mention this earlier, but the whole idea around scale for us is how do we simplify it? Mm-hmm. I think early on, we overcomplicated it because we all had engineering backgrounds, and of course we wanted to have all the software and we want to do all the things. And sorry, go ahead.
And your whole product thesis is around optimizing processes, so you got to do that for your company too.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we got pretty far early on with software tools and things like that, but it wasn't complicated. And as we were adding people to the team, adding customers, right? It's a different level of conversation you're having at that point.
So on the financial side, outside of your traditional ways to measure, your income statement, balance sheet, y'all both mentioned OKRs. KPIs, things like that. How do you measure, how do you really measure your company, outside of those traditional sources? And what do you look at to put together your board presentations when you're saying, all right, this is what we've done, and this is where we're going? What are the big things that you look at right now?
There we go. Yeah, so we actually do, and again, this is part of the kind of the EOS mantra, is we actually go through data every single Monday with our leadership team around how many quotes were sent out, how many deals were won, how much new revenue, right? And so we start seeing these kind of leading indicators around potential problem areas or success areas for us. And so that becomes a leadership conversation. Okay, well, that's something we need to optimize, right? Let's talk about that next. And again, from a board presentation standpoint, we always go through, current financials to budget, go through kind of the highlights of what happened last quarter versus areas where we missed, and trying to set that level of transparency with our investors and internal board members, to have a good conversation, really.
I think for us, it's following the customer life cycle and getting very, very detailed and ruthless with each step that they take, and ensuring that we can understand where the gaps are, where the roadblocks are, and then the different metrics. You can make a million of them. Is it speed? Is it time? Is it unit? But just truly getting down, and it sounds stupid, but even, having someone, I'm a customer, I'm in sales, I see this, then what happens? Then I go here, right? And making sure that the entire life cycle is linked. And what we found, and I think generally most things, the seams are always what kill you. It's the weakest part of any organization structure, the seams between marketing and sales. What is that handoff? How do you over-index on the seams? What's the handoff between a post-sale and your account management? How do you over-index? Is it speed? What is that metric? But ensuring that you're always working through the life cycle and you're always having reps to ensure that you can see what the customer sees.
You got something else?
I was going to say, I guess question for you, Nick. Do you see it being easy to over-rotate on data and measurements, or have you found kind of a sweet spot?
I don't think we found a sweet spot. We got a long ways to go. Actually, we have Lauren Tisdale here. She's our project manager extraordinaire. So I think she brings would you like to come up and give a speech, Lauren? Are you sure?
Extraordinary, that's a big title, extraordinary.
Yeah. So really, I think what she's done a great job with our team, and we have an operations team, is doing the quant data, but also having those discovery conversations, and I try to have them just behind the scenes. What did it feel like? Was this a great experience or a bad experience, and why? Yeah. So trying to ensure that we incorporate that piece. I think to your point, you can get lost in the data really quickly, and especially there's so many metrics out there, you pick the wrong one, and you're in a tailspin.
Well, that leads me to the next question about data. You can't open your browser these days without seeing, Auto GPT, GPT, 3.5, large language models, all this stuff, and you got Gary Vaynerchuk screaming every day, if you don't adopt it, you're going to die. You got to have a strategy for it. You mentioned data. How are you taking that data and potentially making it a revenue channel? What's your strategies for that?
Yeah, I think for us, it's something that we're trying to be mindful of, specifically with our clients, around the types of services that they are presenting to clients and potentially customer data. One thing that we evaluate is, are there any security issues and concerns with putting data like that into an AI model? However, I think there are absolutely other areas of the business that we leverage it for already. So press releases, I sat over there and wrote one for me. And on the marketing side, sales copy, I absolutely think that it's going to be a game changer in a lot of areas. You just have to be mindful around what information you're sharing and how you're doing it. However, I do think, there's specifically for us, a way to take somehow, without breaching any kind of security concerns around the data that we have in our platform, and allowing that to make our clients better at what they do.
Well, you've only got a run rate of how many years right now? You've trained the model for how
5 years.
5 years. So 5 to 8. Nick, you just got into this, I think, didn't you?
The data piece?
Yeah. And it's taken you how long to train the model to get enough data to actually have a good plan?
A long time. Jeremy, my business partner, we start out, we're a data company that drives conversational messaging. So in order to accomplish our mission, which is democratize the nonprofit support experience, at the simplest sense, we need to understand when your birthday is, what do you care about? If you're a supporter of We Do Warrior Project, were you in the military? Yes or no? So for us, data, we believe, is gonna be our competitive advantage for us to accomplish the mission. So we're really excited with ChatGPT and all this AI stuff coming out, because I can barely add. So we don't have to solve that problem, so we can focus on what we need to do and leverage all the big minds out there that are creating these incredible tools for us to use and figure out the application of it.
Okay. All right. Anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned it in the Fireside chat before, but the idea of product-led growth, that for us was a big deal. So in order to do that effectively, there's a lot of data involved, and what is the customer doing in your platform? How do you monetize it? So on and so forth. So there was a lot that went into how do we leverage the data, how they're using our platform so that we can make their experience better, talking about the seams and that handoff. But again, that was a big shift. So, right, I see at one time product-led growth, hey, that's a great idea because it's an easier way to go to market and there's a bunch of value add there. But now it's evolved into product-led sales. So now we go into a sales conversation saying, I know what this person has done in our free account. They've done this, they're focused on this. They looked at our marketing site, right? We have all this data available to us.
The guided sell.
Yeah, I mean, it's now the leverage is now on our side as opposed to the client side. Mm-hmm. It's been really a game changer for us.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch that. Guys, we're out of time here. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Any questions here?
We nailed it.
Nailed it. All right. Thanks, guys.